guilty pleasure, comfort food. Those are the two best ways I could describe my experience with the Crew franchise. It's a love that runs deep and silently. If you've watched my channel, you probably never would have guessed this. Out of all the racing games that I've played, however, Crew is actually the one with the most hours. I'm not paid by Ubisoft to say what I'm about to say. The paid promotion in this video will be referring to our sponsor NordVPN. When researching for cars, motorcycles, or Martian-made Doniger-class battleships, I like to get as many statistics as possible from as many places as possible. Google searching oftentimes is based on your region, so it's interesting for me to always learn new things when Googling the same prompt across different regions. NordVPN is the fastest virtual private network service, which also allows you to browse the web through an encrypted network tunnel, so that information such as your IP address and geographical location are kept private. It can also help you access content not available in your country, something I find very useful when it comes to watching streaming services. Simply select a server in one of the 60 different countries available to choose through NordVPN, and you can get yourself a neat skeleton key for pesky region locks. Get your exclusive deal at nordvpn.com/bladedangel. It's risk-free with Nord's 30-day money-back guarantee. Right now, NordVPN is offering a huge discount with the purchase of a 2-year plan that comes with 4 extra months. Try it today and browse the internet securely. Now that we've cleared that, let's talk about one of the biggest racing sleeper hits, not just released this year, but really this past decade. Assuming Ivory Tower does with this game they did with Crew 2, and seeing as they already have a couple of months of events and updates lined up, I'd say the shelf life of this game, it's gonna make it the distance. Map and graphics. Hawaii was a fantastic choice for this game. The Crew 1 and 2 were set in a distorted, scaled-down United States. This map was big, but it was also vast and empty. And by the way, that's not me critiquing a lack of detail. That's actually how the United States is in real life. The United States does have huge deserts, mountain ranges, and lots of cornfields in the Midwest. Therefore, the developers aren't being lazy. They're literally just capturing what they see, right? So this is why I think Hawaii was just a good choice. You can remain faithful to the island's geography, still have a lot of tropical looking themes, have a lot of that variety, and you can scale everything properly without having to bore players with half an hour of cornfields and deserts during their cross-country drives. The map is detailed, the scenery is varied, and the vegetation this time is super gorgeous. The graphics in this game are undeniably a step up from Crew 2. And I am gonna say this, they're not as realistic as Forza, but they're very vivid, and I like this color palette. It doesn't go as harsh on the shading as Forza does because it's not trying to be realistic. I'm okay with that. Many gaming communities have long figured out that realistic graphics aren't actually better. While Crew Motorfest obviously isn't cartoonish styled like Unbound, the vivid color palette does give it more of that fantasy aesthetic, and I'm not gonna lie, I'm all for it. It fits the tropical theme of Hawaii. It fits the super goofy just feel of this game, because at the end of the day, people play video games to escape reality, not be reminded of it. So I don't care if it doesn't look realistic, and if you leave a comment saying that, sure, if that's how you want to buy games going forward, keep buying the next game that looks super realistic but doesn't have good gameplay and then complain about it for the 8th time in a row. Having said that, let's move on to cars and handling. This is yet another huge step up from Crew 2, and this time it is actually punching near the weight class that people used to make fun of. They're actually punching pretty close in the 600 plus vehicle category. At the end of the day, you probably still will find more cars in Forza, but you won't find more variety. There are motorcycles, F1 cars, and of course, you still have planes and boats. Not only are they available for purchase, if you've played Crew 2 before, any amount of progress is able to be carried over to Motorfest. Not just once either. Someone on Twitter did show me that you can actually go back to Crew 2 and transfer your progress as many times as you want. Let me reiterate that. Any amount of progress. So if you've played Crew 2 and you enjoyed Crew 2, this is practically a no-brainer to buy, since you literally can just pick off from where you left. And that's so cool. A lot of sequel games these days, they just take everything away from you from the previous game. That way they can pad out the playtime as you re-grind for all your cars, so they can go to all their investors and show the player time metric. Because unfortunately, that's a metric that's way too chased after by big corporations like Microsoft, So it's insane to see a company just be ballsy enough to just give players what they had in the prequel. Even more ballsy is the fact that they actually sought out licensing again to redistribute those exact cars with their custom skins as well. That probably cost them some money to do, and yet they did that for us. Now unfortunately, some classes were just straight up removed from the previous game. I used to have over 120 vehicles in Crew 2, but I only carried over 80 or so into Motorfest because goodbye jet boats, hovercraft, RIP helicopter, a few planes as well, and so on. I don't know all the classes that got removed, but I do know a fair amount did get removed. I'm going to miss them all, but at the end of the day, starting an account with 81 vehicles isn't exactly something I'm going to cry about. Even if I did restart, honestly, I wouldn't even be mad. I would definitely just play this game ground up as well. I mean, you have the choice to do that too, by the way, if you are coming over from Crew 2 and you don't want to carry your vehicles. Cars don't come super cheap in Crew. While the main story does provide a few loaners to get you through the starter missions to also give you a feel about how certain vehicles and certain classes handle, they're not showering you with 10 wheel spins that then give you 5 supercars after a 4-minute race, so 30 minutes into the game you already have like basically endgame capable vehicles that you can just use forever. Now of course, as you do get further into the game, some of these playlists will reward you with a car, and some PvP summon events can also reward you with a car if you place super high at the end of the weekly tally for it. It's not start with a rusty crap box and win a street race like the old Need for Speed Underground era of games, and as much as I love starting with a rusty crap box, I don't think most Gen Z and Gen Alpha have the patience to or attention span to do games like that, so those games might never come back, but to me, I think this is a healthy balance. It reminds me a lot of early 2000s Gran Turismo progression, which honestly, that's a compliment, because that's my favorite progression system ever. Mini cars are obtained at the end of a playlist, much like finishing a full cup in Gran Turismo 3 or Gran Turismo 4, those would also reward a car. However, some of these playlists actually have a buy-in, and they require certain vehicles or classes to even enter them. Therefore, your money is being chipped away at a decent interval relative to how it's being earned. Crew doesn't insult your hard work or attention span like most modern collectathon racers. I get it though, some kids do want cars really quickly, but there's a good medium that developers must strike. Let's talk about menuing. The UI is cleaner than ever. It was so clean, in fact, that I actually got confused with how clean it was. Because I'm not gonna lie, one of Crew 2's bigger weak points, and one of its probably only weak points, is that it was just super clunky to navigate through. Like, you had to hit a separate button to exit the game instead of just finding it on your escape key or settings as usual. It was an entirely different menu. On top of that, you had menus for menus on menus on menus. Like, if you're just watching this footage I'm recording, it probably already gave a few of you aneurysms. Like, how are you navigating this? Trust me, when you play a game for 4 years, you learn how to navigate it, but I don't blame you if you don't want to learn that. It's super nice that Crew Motorfest has a very cleaned up UI. You like, maybe you just press tab, right? And then you just select one of these, and these are basically all encompassing menus. They basically each have their entire structure put in them. By the way, I am very traumatized by this shop button, and because every modern game, this shop button will usually bring you to some dumb skins shop or some dumb pay-to-win gacha shop or some dumb battle pass shop that then charges you a whole bunch of money that requires a whole bunch of real-life purchases. So I just wasn't clicking it for like my entire first day until my friends on Discord were like, I finally asked them, I was like, hey guys, like, where's one of the car dealerships where I can buy like a new car? Because up until then I was using the 81 cars I carried over from Crew 2, as well as a few of the cars I won from playlists in some of the earlier playlists in Crew Motorfest. And they were like, my guy, it's the shop button, what else would it be? And I was like, you're kidding, right? I was like, I don't want to look through the shop though. They're like, just click it. And I clicked it and I was like, oh my god, it's shop as an in-game shop. So it's literally just an in-game car dealer. And this is a huge advantage from the previous Crew, where you had to physically visit different locations for different classes for different vehicle types. So like I said, Crew 2 was a great game, but definitely one of the bigger weak points was the bad menuing and the really weird system of how you bought each vehicle. And probably the most important thing to a lot of people that I absolutely do want to talk about before I close this video is PvP, as well as the community's future. This game is very much what is called an MMO light, which is not a full-blown MMO experience like World of Warcraft. You are automatically dropped into populated lobbies with other players. You can race with them, screw around with them, start events or do leaderboards with them, add them to your friends list, add them to your crew. You can also just transform into a plane and recreate Pearl Harbor. Okay, so maybe don't do the last one since you'll probably just ghost through them anyways, but it doesn't change the fact that it's still pretty funny to just dive bomb your plane onto unsuspecting players just for the reaction alone. But still has a lot of MMO elements. As you can probably tell of some things I've said this video, it is a bit on the grindier side compared to most racers. I'm okay with that. I don't have a short attention span, and I don't want to be insulted by developers who think that. This game does reward your progression and does give you steady progression. So as I mentioned throughout this video, if you're wondering what the word summit is constantly referring to, this game has weekly summits much like its previous game, and these are basically competitive ranked events that give fantastic rewards. My recommendation for this month's summit though, because the game just launched, is actually to not take part in events that you don't have a car for. So if you're a brand new beginner, just do summit events that can just let you enter them. If it requires you to buy a vehicle, I would say save money, because you want to snipe the summits that actually reward either a car or a full legendary parts set. They still give very fantastic rewards even on the lower tiers, and even just doing the events just give rewards too, right? And it's a lot of fun to do these leaderboard chasing. It's a lot of fun to see other players' ranks and cheese away and try to get a few more 1,000 points each time you do the event, and it's just fun. You know, there aren't many games where I just have fun weekly, especially many racing games that give you a weekly incentive to engage in competitive ranked activities with other players. You can also crash into other players in some of the open world escapes, and I always found that funny. So if you ever remember this name hitting you at one point or time or another, I'm absolutely sorry for griefing you, but I cannot resist. And speaking of griefing, the grand race is hilarious. It's just 28 morons smacking into one another, at least during beta. Shockingly, post-launch, I'm not gonna lie, my friends and me have actually been getting some pretty clean lobbies, who only crash during the corners, but after a few grand races, some of my crewmates even bagged top 1, top 2, top 3 podium finishes grand race after grand race. And these are super nice events. They give a fantastic payout, they're very fun to get involved in, they're super chaotic, and they have enough people where you don't feel like you really hold a grudge against anyone because they're just smacking into each other, so you don't feel super guilty if you are a beginner. I would recommend just queuing into one if you see it as a beginner. You don't expect to win them, it's okay, just do it because it's fun. And even when you don't get a podium finish, it still gives a lot of credits compared to your normal playlist events that are just like part of the main story. These races happen about every half an hour, and I love that. I love that the servers that Ivory Tower has provided can just do this massive PvP event, and combined with the leaderboards being just as addictive and competitive as they were in Crew 2, and combined with the weekly summits that they've seemed to bring for the first couple months that are already mapped out, and they're still doing them in Crew 2 actually. I just realized Crew 2 still has weekly summits. I have insanely high hopes for this game. There's something cool about getting like a top 100 spot and then waking up the next morning and seeing that I've fallen down 200 places. That doesn't sadden me. It makes me realize that the game is alive. It has an active community. Day 1 alone already had 500,000 players ranked on the very first track's leaderboard. And this gives me hope for long-term sustainability. This brings me to the conclusion, something that I feel racing games have struggled with lately, or perhaps most modern games are struggling with lately, is that they just don't really have post-launch support. But thankfully, that is present in Crew Motorfest, and I know what someone's still gonna say after my entire review of just loving and praising this game. Someone's gonna say, Forza has better physics, Need for Speed has better nitrous, but to me, Crew has the most fun. From land, sea, sky, and everything in between. Crew isn't promising to be a realistic race simulator. It's not promising to be an action movie arcade game or story-driven tale. It's just plain old fun. It's enough to boot up a few hours a day and just get lost in the dumb things you can do in weekly events. Crew Motorfest and the entire Crew franchise is perhaps the biggest sleeper hit that doesn't have its praises sung highly enough, because all the 4 million players who played the previous title, we were probably too busy playing the game to ever really complain. It's everything I remember Forza Horizon 1 and 2 being, but so much more. I'd probably compare this experience more to something like Grand Theft Auto 5 racing lobbies, except you don't have the griefing from all the oppressors, RPGs, snipers, or the pay-to-win shark cards being shoved down your throat from Rockstar. You also don't have the dumb insurance or summoning fees. Here in Crew Motorfest, you can just have it all. You can have a plane, a car, a bike, a boat, seamlessly too. Middle of driving, you can switch to one. That experience is unique to Crew, signature even. If you want a racing game that won't be dead shortly after arrival, I think it's time someone speaks up for this hidden gem, which is why I'm singing its praises. This is not the cheap Forza clone that people have written off in 2018. After playing the entirety of Crew 2 and watching it outlive both Horizon 4 and Horizon 5, really made me eat a massive humble burger about how wrong I was about Crew 2, and I'm not going to make that mistake with Crew Motorfest. I have faith in Ivory Tower. I think they're not becoming what the greedy Microsoft is becoming, and what Microsoft is starting to do with games like Halo Infinite, and may soon do to Forza. I mean, just look at Twitter of everyone complaining about the models and reuse of a whole bunch of assets for the newer Motorsport game. Even if you don't care about racing games, if you're just sick of waiting for Grand Theft Auto 6, believe it or not, I'd actually recommend this game to you. It's not going to have sniper duels or weapons obviously, but otherwise it captures all the automotive aspect of Grand Theft Auto. It has that hilarious open world freedom. Combined with the fact it's still a sandy island, I think it might just hit all the same notes in all the right ways. It's freedom, true freedom, flight on demand, boat on command, roads until the end. I have faith, so don't disappoint, Ivory Tower. You've made 2 games that lasted 4 years so far each. Make this your 3rd. Be what Forza Horizon used to be. If you feel inspired, what are you waiting for? Come to Hawaii. Thanks for watching, and if you enjoy automotive content, make sure to subscribe and share this video with your pet shark. Otherwise, see y'all next time. Blade Angel out.